Vishnu, thank you so much for making time. Thank you for being a founding member of Bikes, Buddies, and More. Thank you for being a great friend, a mentor for a lot of us. I know you as a prolific entrepreneur, as you'd like to call it. But for the rest of the world, would you want to tell what you do for a living?
That's a good start, Sashank. But first of all, thank you so much for inviting me into the space. Uh, I've been a part of BBM for many years now, and I've really been touched by your generosity. Uh, Answer your question, what do I do for a living? A couple of things. Uh, One, I'm an education entrepreneur. I'm an educator at heart. I love creating learning communities, especially in the field of K to 12 schools. I've done this for almost 17, 18 years now, and I see myself doing this for the next 3, 4, 5 decades. I'm also a value investor. That's where large part of my bills get paid. I love understanding great businesses, and I wait for a time when you buy them right. And I sit on them for several decades, allowing compounding to happen. So I really enjoy also being an investor in it. I'm also a avid motorcyclist, and that's why I think you and me got along
Absolutely,
very
yes.
well. Of course, it doesn't pay the bills, but keeps my soul alive.
Excellent. So, Vishnu, uh, but most recently you've been associated with a large group of schools, and your reputation precedes you as an institution builder. Would you want to tell us how your journey in this particular sector started? After college, how did it happen? And you've spent what, 25 years now in this industry?
I've spent 25 years overall, 20 years, I'm not that old, 20 years working post my college, but out of which about 17 odd years or 18 years in the field of education. But I'm not an educator by training. I did not start with an understanding of schools. I did the usual route, went to college in Chennai, grew up there, went to Loyola, did my BCom. But in my college, I really had this uh, passion to get into the Indian Army. Those were the times of the Kargil War. Uh, so in my generation, when you grew up, you pretty much knew what's happening in the front. And I had this obsession to join the army, and I probably spent 2 years of my college uh, thinking about how do I get into it, prepared myself, went through all kinds of workshops. And you would know the selection to the army as an officer requires to for you to one pass a entrance exam, which is the easy part. But then comes the 5 day service selection board, which is a residential leadership assessment where you're put through a series of and a battery of tests, psychometric testing, your capacity to do teamwork, analytical thinking under stress. You're made to do difficult tasks and make some difficult decisions, and they observe you. So I went through some of those trainings, and it really helped me grow as a person. And God was kind. I got through the army. I was all set to join the 72nd batch in this officers training academy. But I met with an accident, and I was medically relegated for a year.
Ouch.
And after a year, I thought it doesn't make sense for me to join back the army.
Was that difficult?
At that point, it was exceptionally difficult. I optimized my life to ensure that I get through the army. And when it was a time for me to wear the uniform, I met with an accident. So it was tough. But in a lot of ways, when I look back, I'm so happy to life that had happened. One, it gave me those 12 months when I was recuperating in the hospital at home and I was getting through my
And this was you
therapies.
hurt your leg?
Oh, it was a
You hurt your
major
leg.
bike accident, and my journey with bike started with that. Uh, Prior to that, I never had a passion for biking. I just used bike to go from point A to point B. I mean, I didn't have a bike then. I had a Luna, which is a 50cc moped.
Yeah.
But that was freedom for me, and I really
So
enjoyed
did it
doing
need
it.
registration that time?
I'm sorry, what's
Did
that?
it need registration that time?
It
Because
did, of course. It
we had
is.
one which had a Luna, and that didn't need registration. So that
That was
was
Mofa.
Mofa. Okay.
That's Mofa. That's from the Royal Enfield stables. A lot of people don't remember that
Right.
these iconic Royal Enfield motorcycles also manufactured. I think it's a 35cc
Right.
moped. It didn't need a license. It didn't need a registration.
Yeah.
called the Mofa. It's surprising when you go to the Western worlds today, when you see these cycles with
Correct.
motor, I think we were way ahead of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
30 years back, we had something like that called the Mofa. But Luna was a little more advanced than a Mofa. You needed a registration, you needed a license.
You had a clutch to start the engine.
That's
to
right.
disconnect
Yeah,
the
it had a
this
pedal.
one.
You got to
Yeah.
cycle
Pedal
and you
cycle.
got to.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
But it was heaven.
I still have one, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. It was heaven. I really loved the red color. It was given down, passed down to me by my uncle. He didn't use it, so I took it on. And but the accident didn't happen on that. It happened on a 90cc motorcycle in one of the intersections in Chennai when a bus, which was supposed to go straight, turned right, and I was in the wrong lane, and it just ran over my left leg, and I broke my tubular bones. Had about 3 surgeries, almost a year to recover. Had some skin grafting and a whole lot of tinkering in my leg. But I'm glad it happened. It gave you that space to think about what you want to do in life. My love with motorcycles instantly started with an accident.
Unbelievable.
I did not run away from the motorcycle.
And your parents are okay to let you drive, right?
I mean, I think we belong to that generation. We really didn't ask our parents what to do, what not to do. Uh, and my parents are pretty chilled as long as you're safe and things. Much of my biking back then was within the city, so I don't think it was as risky. Even now, I'm sure at BBM we're exceptionally safe. We do not do anything
Yeah,
stupid. We
yeah.
do not put anything at risk at all.
So, Vishnu, that would have been really difficult.
Huh.
But in general, we all go through such phases in life. Uh, would you like to share how did you get out of that situation? 1 year on bed must have been really, really difficult.
It was tough, but I didn't get into uh, valuing depression. I just started thinking of what are the next option. That's how I've probably made. I really didn't uh, think too much about what could have happened, how could I have avoided it, etc. Yeah, I was. There are some nights when the entire family was sleeping. I was awake. When you're lying in bed for so long, your muscles are getting atrophied. You don't get your sleep. You pretty much sleep for 2 3 hours a day. And some of those moments, I vividly remember just crying, but ensuring that the noise doesn't go out and wake my mother up. Was uh, greatly worried about what's going to happen to my future. Uh, but I started thinking about options, and of course, for most Indian urban kids, MBA was the next default option. Unfortunately, you know, uh, within a year, I met some very inspiring people. They gave me a good direction in terms of how do I take this passion for the armed forces forward. And I decided to build some understanding around leadership development, executive coaching. How do I help people realize their own potential the way I experienced it when I got myself ready for the armed forces? And one led to another. And within about 18 months, I applied for an MBA, went to Symbiosis. I was told it was great for human resources. And once I got into an MBA, then I scouted for a great firm which will help me deepen my understanding about leadership development, executive coaching. I got placed in one of the largest FMCGs in the country, which is the day one company during the placement week.
Which one was this?
This was Godrej Consumer Products, GCPL. But I did not take that offer because by then I had discovered a very boutique, small niche firm which specializes in leadership development. It was called Grow Talent. I joined the sixth or the seventh employee, an exceptionally set of founders and people who have spent several decades helping large corporates and individuals in the space of leadership development. That's when I learned the ropes of how do people really grow.
So, this was a year after passing out?
No, in fact, even before I finished my MBA, I met the founder, uh, Anil Sachdev, who's now founded School of Inspired Leadership. And those days, internet was not that common, But I found out that he's going to speak in a conference. I'll probably go all the way down to that conference place, wait for him to come down the stage or ask a dummy question just to get his attention. I did that for almost about 4 5 months, and eventually he had no choice but to get me an unpaid internship during the winter semester, which is I was still in the B school. I still had an offer in hand, But I spent 3 months doing some internship projects, nothing paid. I had to figure out a place where I had to stay in Bombay. There's a Bombay office, and they had some projects over there. And I just worked there, and I really liked them. And over the 3 months, they realized that I'm a good fit culturally. That was also the time where they had a pro bono assignment to design a 5 day leadership retreat for about 100 school principals of Chinmaya Vidyalayas. Chinmaya Vidyalayas, as you would know, it's a
Yeah.
large group of schools run by the Chinmaya Mission. It's fully not for profit. There are about 75 schools. So back then in 2004, I was still in my MBA final year. They wanted somebody to design a 5 day leadership offsite and help them come up with a 5 year strategic roadmap. And Anil wanted some young consultants to help him with that process, and he roped me in because I was an intern. I was not built to the clients yet, so I was free. I'm on the bench, but that changed my life. That's my first glimpse into the world of schools. I just felt what I could be doing with grown-ups in the corporate world. You could actually do it with school leaders
Yeah.
and have much more deeper impact on the lives of young children. But I stayed with Grow Talent for about 4 years.
Wow.
It was still a very enterprising and entrepreneurial role, and that's one of the reasons I joined a small firm and not a large conglomerate like the Godreges are. But unfortunately, that company got acquired. It was so successful that it got acquired by a NYSE listed larger consulting firm. And then I moved on to a much larger firm, which was just setting up its executive coaching practice. They had a very small team focusing on leadership development, and they knew about my work. They knew about my track record at Grow Talent. So they said, "Why don't you join us?" It was a global role, and I said, "Why not?" Done projects in Malaysia, UK, US, in India, etc. And in that period, also, I had several opportunities to do pro bono work with schools, something which I sought out. I used to offer my services to school owners, school boards, and say, "Hey, look, I'm a consultant. I can do this work free for you. I know you're also looking for some formal guidance on how do you plan your strategic roadmaps, how do you put operational reviews, how do you professionally develop talent in schools, because schools are not designed like the corporates are, at least 20
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
back. And some of these schools were progressive enough. Okay, why don't we try it out with Vishnu? Anyway, we're not going to pay him. It's free.
No, awesome.
And
Yeah.
that's how it started. And one of my pro bono clients was the heritage schools.
Wow.
So between 2007 and 2008, I did free work for them.
Wow.
I helped them design competency framework for school leaders, competency framework for grade 8 to grade 12. How do you formally develop leadership skills in school students, etc. I'm not sure how much they worked, but they just found me as a nice, affable guy. I also like them because they're a small community wanting to do things. And that's how my journey started with schools. In 2009, I was just turning 29. We were young and stupid. So me and my wife felt it's a great time for me to pivot, leave the corporate consulting world and get into schools. Deepa is a chartered accountant. So she said she will pay the bills while I'll do my experimentation. I'm eternally thankful that she allowed me to do uh, that risky venture, which was leaving a large consulting firm, joining Heritage, which is not known well back then. It was just a small school, single campus, middle of mustard fields. I almost thought I'm entering into Punjab, where DDLJ was shot, because the school was 3-4 kilometers into mustard fields back
My
then.
God. So the first segment, Vishnu, I think it's been interesting and very inspiring. Three things I get to see. One, in the face of adversity, and this is for all the youngsters, right? For anybody who is probably thinking this is the toughest time in life. Three messages I could pick up from the conversation in your experience. The first 31, 32 years of your life is A, in the face of adversity, you are solution minded, solution driven, and not mulling over the problem or self sympathizing, etc. The second, of course, you prioritize your perseverance in getting into areas which you wanted to, for instance, the job and the internship, trying to get visible. So, resilience, perseverance, and the most important on the third part, of course, was you prioritize learning over compensation
Hmm.
right up to 32, 33 years.
Yeah.
And that I think is brilliant. Can you take us through the journey briefly? How did you create the mammoth institution, what it is today?
Yeah. So, like I said, in 2009 is when I met the founders of the Heritage, Manoj Jain, whom I worked with for the last 17 odd years. He was young back then, but he wanted to do something different and not do the mainstream schooling, which we all had experienced when we were in school. Idea was to make learning more meaningful, real, authentic, keep the child in the center of the whole learning experience and not keep board exams or content as the
And
objective.
hence the name Experiential School.
That's right. So, although we didn't begin with the name experiential, it was called the Heritage Schools. But somewhere in our journey, we realized that we got to call out our core philosophy, which is experiential learning. We wanted to make it more explicit so that we attract the right kind of teaching talent, parent community, etc. And we took a strategic decision to rebrand ourselves, and we rebranded ourselves as the Heritage Experiential Learning School. Another reason also is I think Heritage became too popular, and there's a lot of duplicate heritages mushrooming.
Yeah.
So, from a trademark perspective, we were advised that why didn't you create something more unique in your name so that they can't copy it, and that's the reason why we changed it. So we traveled around the world, met a lot of people, uh, understood the best practices, aggressively copied it. I firmly believe that great institutions, great products are great copycats. Of course, you got to credit where you've taken it from. But it's no idea which has come of its time is actually original. It is a combination of several ideas everywhere, and that's what Heritage did. I personally would have visited about 65 to 70 schools around the world, and I continue doing that even now, identifying what works. And we did that. We invested in R&D, professional development, creating curriculum, IP, creating a tech stack in it, curating a great parent community around it. And life had also been, we were also lucky. We're in the right place at the right time. There are a lot of parents in a city like Gurgaon wanting progressive learning. They don't want the rote learning. They want learning to imitate what they experience at the workplaces. And a lot of our parents have traveled around the world and they've come back. They've seen what's best the world has to offer. And they start questioning their own schools in India. Why can't we offer those? And Heritage, in some sense, appealed to those parents.
Excellent.
And
So
that's how it started. Yeah.
So you started with one campus in 2006-7?
No, there were three campuses. Two were in Delhi, one in Gurgaon. But Delhi, being Delhi, there are different restrictions in terms of schools. So we kind of treated them as separate entities altogether. But the flagship campus was Gurgaon, which was the center for all our R&D, for all our investments in technology, training, etc. That was it started in around 2003, 2004. I joined in about 2008, 2009. But we were a single campus for a long, long time. It's only in 2020 when we have fine tuned the product, we have really mastered our systems, processes, our curriculum frameworks, etc. Did we actually go out and set up the second campus, which is the international campus, in 2020? In 2022, we added one campus, another campus in Gurgaon because there's a huge wait list. In 2022, the same year, we also opened a campus in Noida. And this year, we just opened a campus in Pune. In fact, there are many a times, despite we could have probably set up 10 more campuses, we did not succumb to that pressure or temptation. We were obsessed with what is the quality of learning for our students at this campus. So we really didn't scale the way we could have.
So let's delve a little deeper.
Mhm.
The first question in anybody's mind when they probably see an educator stroke administrator stroke institution builder like you is uh, what should my child get into, right? Should it be CBSE? Should it be ICSE? Should it be IB? What is that benefit match? Stuff like we always hear that if you do an IB, you may not be good enough for an education or graduation in India. You invariably have to head out. Some of those understandings and stuff, if you could just help us demystify some of them.
So, big question. I probably typically do a half a day workshop to parents to help you understand, but I'll try to share some first principles. Some of the first principles parents need to keep in mind when they, if they want to understand schooling in India, right? First thing first, there is no one right school. Uh, I think the choice of a school largely depends on the value system and the worldview a parent would have. That's the first principle. The second principle we need to keep in mind is, even if there is one school which is the best fit for me, that may not be the best fit all through my learning experience or all through my 14 years of formal schooling. For example, certain schools are fantastic for me when I'm in the primary years. Certain schools are a great fit for me when I'm in the high school. So a parent has to think about, is this school right for me at this point in time? And that's a question. And typically I would say you got to take that call thrice. Once when you get your child admitted in nursery in primary years. The second time you think about it is in grade 6. And the third time you think about it is in grade 9, if not 9, at least in 11th, grade 11. Because these are three distinct learning styles, three distinct curriculum demands the child would have. So that's the second principle. The third principle is, curriculum actually doesn't matter. What matters is school culture. There are schools which are far more progressive than what the curriculum demands. So the bigger question is what kind of culture you would want. Yeah.
Correct. But this is more from the schools.
Mhm.
But for us to understand which curriculum in the first place. So my children were in X school on probably a CBSE. I remember we met up and you gave me
Mhm.
a fairly solid discourse stroke monologue that day.
Mm.
And lo and behold, I made up my mind, and obviously my wife and I made up our mind, and what you said made a lot of sense. And we said it's nothing wrong in experimenting, because I had studied CBSE. This was in until 2000,
Yeah.
my
Mm.
schooling. My children were largely learning the same concepts.
Mm.
So the pivot for our children, for us as parents to move to IB was primarily the pedagogy was probably has not progressed as much,
Mm.
and we wanted to experiment, and which is what we spoke, that you can relook at their curriculum or their boards in sixth.
Mm.
And I was genuinely very impressed in the first. I will narrate a small incident, right? So there was a Christmas event, and we want to do a Christmas tree, and just to engage the kids, for every event or festival, the kids do participate. So there was a discussion. My wife and my younger daughter, she was in UKG or first standard that time, was where do we put the Christmas tree? We have cats at home. We have 6 of them, and my wife said, let's put it on the balcony. What do you think? And surprisingly, the first standard kid gets up and says, look, mom, let's do a assessment.
Mm.
Let's identify pros and cons
Mm.
of a putting it in the living room or in the balcony.
Mm.
And I think what blew me away was her ability to think in a very structured fashion,
Mm.
which I don't know. The child would have had it in CBSE, but for a fact, I see that the approach of education in IB is more subject driven, going to depths, versus move from one chapter to the other and have a more broader learning.
Mm.
Is that understanding correct? That CBSE does more width and the subjects go in through the classes, and whereas IB probably goes more vertical.
Yeah, your the way you put it is broadly correct. Uh, some of these international curriculums are not so obsessed with width of content; they're more obsessed with depth of content, right? Uh, they're also more focused on, can we do concept based or a skill based learning than a content based learning. Like, for example, in some of the national curriculum, there is a chapter level focus. Chapter wise, you go chapter 1, chapter 2. In many of the international baccalaureate programs, you would say, why would you do that? You go with the focus on themes and you move ahead. So, those are the broad distinctions in it. Even the assessments, for example, a lot of the CBSE would be around memorization or recalling of content, etc. But in an baccalaureate program, there is an application oriented focus in it. But there are certain caveats I want to, it's not so much of a black and white in it. uh, there are CBSE school, like Heritage run CBSE schools also. I'm also working on a project to set up a group of schools, but some of them just could be CBSE as well. Even in those schools, you will find the schools ensuring that the students do more application, thinking in frameworks, building the right habits of thinking, for example. Uh, so it doesn't matter. So because some of these schools actually push the CBSE curriculum also to build the right skills in our children. But I've also seen a lot of international baccalaureate school doing the reverse.
If I have done my IB, is it true that I necessarily have to get out of India and pursue my graduation or post graduation outside of India?
That's a very valid question. A lot of parents ask me. The answer is actually again no. It depends on the school, depends on what the intent of the student is. I'll give you some data points. At least a few years, till about a few years back, I haven't seen the data for the last couple of years, but I doubt it's too different than what it was 2 years back. Till about a few years back, one in two children who do IB in grade 12 actually stay back in India for the undergrad.
That's like 50%.
50%, yeah. I think about 47, 48% was the figure. So point being is that a lot of students do IB not because they want to go abroad, but they want to get a deeper learning experience in 11 and 12. And they don't want the exam focus experience the way it is in CBSE. That's the whole purpose. And once they finish it, their options are, of course, much higher overseas, but doesn't mean they don't get options here. In fact, one in two almost of students stay back in India. In fact, that trend will increase with the rise of more high quality uh, universities in India.
Okay, another big question is,
Yeah.
why are IB schools more expensive than CBSE schools?
Actually, that's also not true.
Is it?
In a city, of course, when you have to see a CBSE and an IB, you would find a variance. An IB are a little more expensive, but there are also IB schools cheaper than many CBSE schools. Happens. What matters, of course, is the power of the brand, how much demand that school has. Second, also the quality of staff. In fact, if you look at uh, let's say the P&L, profit and loss for a school, a bulk of the expenses after the infrastructure actually goes on salaries. Gone are the days where you get teachers for 3,000 rupees a month, 4,000 rupees a month. When maybe we were in school, teaching was considered as a noble profession, but it didn't honor the teacher. The teachers were paid
Yeah.
pittance. But today that's not the case. A lot of today a fresher teacher probably gets much more than an engineer would do get in a technology company. I mean, and that's been true for the last at least 8 or 9 years. So that's a positive shift. You're attracting great talent into teaching. You look at some of the top countries like Finland, Singapore, Australia. One of the consistent reasons why they are high performing educational systems is they attract good talent, and that's
Yeah.
beginning to happen. The structure that is required to run an IB school demands greater investment. It is like saying, why is a dahi papadi chaat more expensive in an Oberoi as against a Haldiram?
So, if we had to delve a little deeper, for instance, can you give us, obviously, every school is different. Can you give us a breakdown of the cost structures of schools in whatever shape and form? It doesn't have to be specific. What would be the biggest heads
Hmm.
as we go down? So, you said teaching. Is that number one?
So, like you said, I just left Heritage, and now I'm trying to set up a new group of schools, more progressive, and that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm working with a bunch of investors, putting my own money in terms of creating uh, uh, a school, which I would imagine the community would
So,
like
you're
and to be
far
part of.
closer now.
I'm far more
And
closer in terms of I'm redoing this entire thing.
yeah.
I can tell you for the first 8 years, I will not receive any money. I- Even if I assume I get great admissions, the school is doing exceptionally well, etc. I meet all my admission budgets I have. I still won't make any return on it for the first 8 or 9 years, purely because of the cost of the land and the infrastructure. So, to answer your question, the bulk of the investment actually goes into infrastructure. In India, any sector which depends on real estate for their functioning, they are highly uncompetitive, unlike it is in the West, because of the cost of infrastructure, cost of land, cost of buildings here. uh, it is a myth people have. Oh, you should be getting a school land on a subsidy. No,
Correct.
I think the government, no state government in this country actually gives you uh, any concession on the land. In fact, even the government allotted land for education purposes, they are auctioned on commercial rates. So first thing first, the government has stopped providing any concessions on infrastructure, uh, especially in big cities. That's not, and that's one of the reasons you rarely find entrepreneurs getting into school sector. You only have, I'm a rarity, and it is a huge risk somebody has to take to set up schools because the upfront costs are very, very prohibitive. Let's say after the ninth year, you've paid back your cost of land and the building, etc. Assuming the land and the cost have recovered, I think first of all, you need to find investors who are willing to wait for 9 years with the hope that you'll meet your admission numbers over 9 years. But assuming you're lucky to get those, and then you run the school, from the ninth year onwards, a good 50-55% will go on your teaching talent. That includes your leadership cost, your staff, your uh, coordinators, special educators, art teachers, your classroom teachers, etc. And that is bulk of your in it, because remember, this sector still competes with the corporate world to attract best talent. I still want a few engineers, a few IITians not to take up the startup job, not to take up that job in the corporate world, or not to go to the US to do their masters, but to come back and teach physics
Yeah.
in my school.
Yeah. I think it's
That's the
some great work you guys have done, you all have done at Heritage, and I've was pleasantly surprised to see a lot of people from the corporate world making the switch
yeah.
and moving into teaching, which is brilliant. That also brings a sense of relevance to what they're being taught and how they are being taught.
I often joke, school is like an orchestra. The orchestra master has to scout for different people from different walks of life, different nationalities, different mindsets, etc., and bring them together so that children benefit from that diversity of talent and perspectives.
Now, as you're setting up schools and your experience of setting up some of the finest schools in the past, do you have any stories where you can look back where you probably have made some mistakes or you failed, and how quickly did you recover? Because these are very sensitive and critical sectors to be in. Children, as they say, are like wet cement. Anything that falls on them leaves an impression for life. So, did you have any such
Oh,
experiences?
lots of them. One day, I hope I write a book on all the mistakes I make, but I'm sure that's going to go to 7 or 8 volumes. But I think all great institutions are nothing but stories of failures, but it's also stories of continuous improvement. One of the things we did really right at the heritage schools, one, we were authentic to ourselves. We were very comfortable with failing, with of course scaffolding the child, etc. We are also very comfortable being vulnerable to each other. So we never had this. We were proud of failures, and we used to have some robust risk mitigation strategies. Things like, we'll probably pilot a small thing, but if it fails, you don't lose much. But if it succeed, your upside is a lot. That's also my philosophy in my own investment journey. But even in schools, uh, we used to do at least 10 or 20 experimentations. But these are small experimentations in small sections, small pilots. If it fails, it's fine. You're not going to lose much. Children are going to get impacted. But if it succeeds, you will probably go. One example, one of my biggest failures, which have started talking a lot about it to other entrepreneurs, is this desire to start a preschool in 2018. And 2018 is a year when my daughter Mira was born. So I was very obsessed with the early years space. I mean, schools typically start from age 3 and 4 and upwards, but the age of 6 months plus is the preschool uh, sector. We never had a presence in the preschool sector. In fact, Manit, the the co-founder or the founder of Heritage Schools, he was always not too excited about the school space, but I was relentless the way I was. That let's get it done in it. And in any case, preschools are not heavy investment, and it was successful. We had about 180 kids at that price point. It is still a very, very good number. But we realized that it's too complex a business to run. It's too complex an institution to run.
Why would you say that?
Young children are not easy to manage. Colleges are far more easier to run from a risk perspective than schools are, and preschools are even more riskier to run
Yeah.
in it. And two, the dynamics of from a big learning is from a vintage. Just because you're successful in a certain sector doesn't mean you can replicate that success somewhere else, because the other sector is far more nuanced and complex. You can't generalize it and simplify it. Like the mistake I made was I simplified that sector. I said, oh, if I can run a school with 4,000 kids, how difficult will it be to run a preschool with 200 kids? But the answer is it takes the same effort to run an institution of 200 kids as it took for 4,000 kids, because young children are far more complex. Third, a school, when you do an admission, I don't have to keep doing admissions every year. The child comes in and I have the child with me for next 12, 13 years, and I can do something meaningful with him. The energy is required for a preschool. So the point being that don't simplify just because it's small. Just because you're successful in some part of the sector doesn't mean you can go there and conquer it. In my mind, it was a big blunder. We lost out the entire building, the investments, etc. We moved into a new full school format in it. Now I'm very, very cautious. If somebody comes and tells me of a new business plan, I often tell them, just don't simplify it, get on the ground.
So another question, now we're talking about costs and heads. I think a lot of times, a lot of parents we all meet, and they say, look, you get, if you're a salary professional, you get X increment, which barely meets the inflationary costs. And add to the burden, the schools also increase it literally every year.
Mm.
Is that avoidable? Is that unavoidable?
Of course, I really wish we have systems like in the West where the public schools are very, very good, where at least education is taken care of by through the taxes we pay to the government. And unfortunately, we are in India. By the way, this trend is just not in developing countries like India. Even you go to countries like Spain, Portugal, UK, etc., Australia, etc., you'll be surprised by the number of private schools which has come up of late, especially the last 10 years. So globally, there has been a cut down in public school budgets in it, and hence you're seeing the rise of the private schools. So I really wish the middle class or the upper middle class parents in our country have a viable, sustainable, high quality public schooling option. But unfortunately, I think it's going to take another 20 or 30 years at least for that to emerge. There are some states who have done some good job.
Is it also like healthcare where you have private players stepping
That's
in
right.
because of lack of primary, secondary, tertiary health infra?
That's right. So it's a great example what you had shared. In fact, education is following where healthcare is going for the last, and it's probably 20 years behind in it. Uh, Government does have public hospitals, and there are people accessing, and it's getting better day by day. And we must acknowledge that the some of the indicators with respect to public health has improved a lot in the last many decades, especially the last 10, 15 years. Even during COVID, you saw how the government moved in to ensure the health and safety of. But the private sector also played a big role
Yeah.
in that, right? The rise of the Apollo hospitals in the south, and then subsequently you had a huge chains coming up. Some of the not-for-profits like the Narayan Hridayalaya, for example, then expanded not just in India but also in Maldives, in Caribbeans, for example, expanding in it. But the flip side to your point is there is price to it. Uh, and education is, unfortunately, what's also happened is it is very real estate intensive. It, in fact, consumes more real estate than hospitals do. You still need to have large playgrounds, swimming pools, co-curricular spaces. You need to have at least 40, 50 square foot per child. You need to have at least 2 lakh square foot of built up space. So we're talking about large infra requirements and with no concession or support from the government. And it doesn't make it easy for people like me when apartments get sold for astronomical prices,
Yeah.
especially in a city like Gurgaon or Bombay or Bangalore, also for that matter. The price of setting up a school also shoots up correspondingly. So it's a
So
chicken and egg story. So
it's just heading nowhere. The point is, if you have healthcare, you have insurance to cover for it. That subsidizes the cost of treatment, if any,
yeah.
amongst the population.
Hmm.
For education, you have to set up an investment fund, right? But for schooling, because it really affects a very large section of our population, is there a possibility? Can we look at some alternate solutions as you are setting up today? Have you made some representation? Is there a possibility?
So I want to flip the your question.
Right.
Right before I answer your question, can the government provide subsidy? Answer is no. Of course, even where will the government go? Had they had the money to give subsidies to private players, they'll probably say, "I'm going to invest more in my public schools. Why didn't you go to the public schools yourself?" By the way, a lot of Delhi residents, for example, the argument of the state government for a long, long time is that,
Right.
look, public schools are not bad. Why would you have to pay so much for private school? Why don't you come to a public school in it? But I would still argue, I know it's unpopular opinion, but for somebody who's been in the sector for so long, and I've also taken a policy view of this, policy perspective, and see what's the best optimum solution. I think the best optimum solution is let the markets play. Uh, uh, the competitiveness of markets at play. For in Gurgaon, for example, a parent today has a choice anywhere starting from 3,000 rupees a month to, let's say,
Three and a half.
50,000
Yeah,
rupees a
that
month.
50,000.
Right.
Yeah. If we compare, you had schools, Heritage has a campus in Gurgaon and has a campus in Delhi. So for some period in time, or even today for that matter, there is a capping on school fees, etc. in Delhi.
Okay.
The brand is the same, the institution is the same. How does that work out?
So they're not the same. I must clarify this. I'm glad you brought this up. I must tell you, maybe in 2007, 2008, when all of these campuses are very nascent and new, one might argue these campuses were on the same footing. But today, if you look at Gurgaon, because there was no regulatory constraints on the fees, school had tremendous capacity to reinvest back in R&D. It had capacity to attract the best talent, not just in India but around the world. So they're all CBSE schools. But if you walk into a Gurgaon campus, it'll probably look like a school anywhere uh, in the Western world. Not just in terms of the quality of learning, but also outcomes. Some of the top schools in Asia, you look at the top 50 QS world rankings of universities, at least 32 of those would have given an offer to the campus in Gurgaon, none in Delhi. You look at the quality of talent. We had great talent in Delhi, but over the last 10, 15 years, all of that talent are they either left or they've been transferred to the Gurgaon school because those schools, we couldn't afford to pay the salaries of
So
those
it
teachers.
does it. So it does effectively
Big
squeeze.
time. I'll give you two more data points. In fact, all of our great teaching talent have been moved out of the Delhi campuses, right?
Ouch, that's bad.
Because you just can't afford them because they also have a 7-8% increment every year, but the fees didn't rise. And what do you do and end up doing? Either those teachers have an option to go join another school, or they, in fact, most of them just leave the sector. They can't join competitive because no school in Delhi is able to. In fact, the reason why Gurgaon and Noida have become what it is as great suburbs of Delhi is actually largely because at any year, 40% of Delhi parents don't get admissions there. There's no new school which has come up in the last 20 years. 20 years, Delhi has not a single new school. But the population is growing. Where do you think those families are going? They end up coming to Gurgaon or Noida because you have better schooling options here. Per capita income, you normalize it. I don't think Indian school fees are still very, very high. Think about it. In our times, IIMs was what?
4 lakhs, three and a
Yeah,
half lakhs.
today is how much is it? IIMs still don't make money because think about it. You still need to attract a great professor from Stanford or Harvard to come here and teach our kids, right? And that costs money. So if you want to compete the best in the world, you got to pay that price. And I'm saying this not just as an education entrepreneur, but also as an investor. I have a daughter. Uh, I have to end up paying fees for her as well. One of the broad thumb rules is the school I send my child to, it should be roughly around 1% of the capital value of the house I live in.
Okay.
That's a broad thumb rule.
That's funny. My career, I started working in a market research firm fresh off college. And I remember doing market research for an international school in NCR, let me not name it.
Name it.
And this was year 2006 or 7, 2007. Unbelievable, right? For me at that point in time, I literally shook because when the founder was telling me, and they had got a very renowned educationalist,
Yeah.
academician to run and set up those set of schools, and it started off in in Delhi NCR, and the starting fee in 2007 was 10.5 lakhs.
But by the way, that school, I know which school you're referring to. That school has been on sale. They're struggling, right? And if I think of the entrepreneur there, it has one of the Delhi
I get
NCR's
it, yeah.
best infrastructure.
Correct.
They've been on sale for the last 4 years. There are no buyers. They are bleeding in it. But if you think of it, the infrastructure is fantastic, etc. But they probably didn't offer the right value proposition to the.
So,
Yeah.
for example, and this is an example I always give, I don't know if it's relevant or not, but at a point in time, both Aishwarya Rai and Sushmita Sen had brought laurels to this country
That's
as
right.
Miss Universe and Miss World.
Mm.
Somebody might find Aishwarya Rai is more beautiful, somebody might find Sushmita Sen is more beautiful. But the baseline fact is nobody can disagree with that they both are beautiful women. So the question is expensive, can be subjective, but there has to be a baseline which says, look, anything beyond this is unreasonable. But at that point in time, or even today, you have schools which charge 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. The question as parents, we always want to give our children the best.
That's right.
Is there a baseline? What is the baseline number in India if you had to?
I would say 1%. That's why I give this thumb rule. Another way to look at it, what's the average ticket size of a holiday in Bali today? I would bet it's not more than the annual fees of your child. I would bet. So we also have to reorient what are we spending on and prioritize. In fact, if you go through a great school, you don't need a college. You'd always heard billionaires and maverick entrepreneurs dropping out of college. You would never hear of a maverick entrepreneur dropping out of school. Right? The reason
That's a good one.
the reason why you have, like, some of the names we know, Zuckerberg, Gates, or Jobs, for example.
If you're
Given the value they
producing
add,
presidents and billionaires, then
it's worth it. I know a lot of Indian parents here who understand that value of Exeter, send their kids to Exeter. I mean, they're not rich. I'm not talking about the billionaires of India. I'm talking about upper middle class professionals who feel, hey, this is the education I want, right? So the point being that it depends on what you view is important in life. The beauty of, at least in the last 20 years, is you have every kind of school at every price point. So you are able to make a choice. You can move kids around. It's not in our times where you got to wait in the queue outside at 4 in the morning to get an application form and you have to pull strings or pay somebody on their table. No, I think most cities have options available for you at this point.
So, Vishnu, after 17 prolific years and setting up and growing the heritage brand, what's cooking?
So I thought I'll take it lightly. I motorcycle around the world in the 12 months post my exit with the heritage schools. Also got more deeper into my other passion, which is investing. But I realized that I'm still an educator at heart. I thrive when I set up schools and I'm with educators and children. So now I've raised money, also invested part of our family wealth as well, whatever little we had, into setting up another group of project-based learning K-12 schools. We're still figuring out the curriculum model. I'm still into R&D. I'm gotten on board some experts around the world to brainstorm on what the final product could look like. But one thing I'm very clear, I don't want to do something which is incrementally better than my last decade. I want this to be more transformative. We'll surely have some presence in Middle East and Southeast Asia, or wherever the Indian community is. We want to be an answer to, we don't want an Indian community which is in, let's say, in Vietnam or in Singapore or in Dubai going to a British school or an American school. Could we have an Indian alternative? But it provides a rigorous and a progressive curriculum the way the British or the American schools provide. So it'll be a multi location, hopefully, in at least 2 or 3 countries in the next 10, 15 years.
From what's cooking, your passion, uh, to the other real passion, which is on two wheels. I remember, Vishnu, we were at Starbucks after a regular ride. I think this was 4.5, 5 years ago. And we bumped into you, a nerdy guy. And and it's like an unsaid culture in the world. You say hi, you greet each other.
Mm.
And in India, may not be as vocal as it is, but I remember very clearly. We were 6 or 8 of us. We finished our ride. We came to Starbucks and we saw a nice black Triumph Bonneville. And okay, good, there is a biker here. And we couldn't figure that it was you because you would obviously get your jacket off and you were reading. And I think this happened once or twice. And I think the third time we ended up speaking. Lo and behold, you became a founding member of BBM. We've had this lovely journey. Why don't you walk us through A, your biking journey, B, then we'll get to the BBM journey.
So I've been in love with the biking since my accident in my when in my 20s.
Interesting.
So and since then I've always saw motorbiking as a vehicle for my spiritual practice. So biking was meditation. So I was one of those folks who were deeply inspired by the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I firmly believe even back then that two wheels are a great way to discover your own soul, expand your consciousness. But for me, it was a solo endeavor. I never saw this as a group task. It's always been alone. So I've done several trips to the Himalayas on a motorbike solo, and I always end up writing an article about it just to close the learning loop. A lot of pivotal moments in my life happened during bike rides, but it all happened solo. But something was very different with you and the bunch of fellow riders who were there, uh, and it just clicked. And it was God sent, like many things in my life. Universe always gives me an answer. I think it was God sent that I met you uh, and BBM. My own mental health, my own capacity as a leader of communities have gone up tremendously since the time I started riding with fellow riders. And today, my stated view is all of us should have a tribe. All of us should have a tribe around a craft we care about. In my case, it is motorcycling and leadership. Uh, because it is not just your healthy eating habits, your strength training, what is going to give you longevity and meaning in life.
Our life becomes a little easier
Easier.
when you have a bunch of people you can lean on.
That's right.
And yeah, the this attempt of this podcast is just that, to share what we've enjoyed as a family to take it to the rest of the world.
That's right. Since the time I've joined this tribe of bikers, uh, I've also made it a ritual that one, I turn up for the Sunday rides if I'm not traveling. It something has to happen really serious that for me to not turn up. But even if I'm not well, it is for me a mental health hack that I got to get up, wear my safety gears, and meet the boys. Another thing I've done, which have helped me so much in my own professional journey in the last 4 5 years, is I also reached out to a lot of these people one on one.
Yep.
Just the way you reached, I've reached out to you several times for advice. Anything I need to buy, I you know that I don't do it without giving you a call and getting your feedback, or you putting me in touch with somebody. Even last week, I met one of the CEOs who runs another large company. We exchange notes on how funding happens and things like that. And I've done that with possibly 20, 30 members on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah.
And people have been very, very generous in terms of sharing their learnings, sharing their experiences. But even the ritual of reaching out to those people and asking for help uh, is possible in a safe space
Yeah.
like the BBM. Yeah.
Brilliant. And I remember, um, at that point in time on the Bonneville, you were a fairly regular rider, riding on the roads, coming back, reading, etc., etc. But something changed, right?
Mm.
there was, I think we had a couple of off-road training programs which we as BBM do, and I think you attended one of them. Something went off and something got turned on. And after that, and for this is for all of our viewers, Vishnu's probably done 15 odd countries. He's now an off-road pro. He's found his mojo, found his calling, not on the road, but off it. So you don't live on the edge, you live off the edge. And it's brilliant. It's been such an inspiration that you've unlocked a new dimension of your life through unlocking a new dimension of riding.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that?
I think, in my mind, at least opened a way for us to know each other was a bike ride with Swami Mitrananda, our spiritual mentor and guru, who he in fact taught us more about Vedanta and Upanishads and the Gita through motorcycles and theatre.
So you
Used
were
to
on a.
love. I was in a Bajaj Boxer, which is a 99cc.
So the previous
motorcycle.
derivative was something which my dad had, and I used to go to college in that, which
Bajaj
is the
Boxer.
Forest. Forest.
Forest is still
Forest.
a good bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boxer, I think, was slightly stripped down version of the Forest.
Much.
It
stripped
didn't have
down.
that little cowl on
The front. Yeah.
on the headlight.
Headlight. Yeah.
But that was the in thing. I mean,
In thing,
started
yeah.
off by Splendor, I think.
Yeah.
Then you had the CBZ, of course, which was crazy,
Pulsar was there
aspirational.
too. Yeah.
Pulsar came in after, I think.
After.
You had there was a bike called Bajaj Caliber.
Caliber was.
It was a beautiful looking bike. It was like fairly naked.
Yeah,
It was like a nice round headlamp.
Yeah.
and all. So I remember those days. That was brilliant. And what was Deepa riding?
Deepa she was in pillion most of the time, although she did take the lead in riding, and she has biked herself on a Pulsar to Leh, Ladakh,
Wow.
etc. I wish I had met BBM 20 years back, early in my life, because till that I met you folks, have attended some of the trainings, I always was a road rider. Like, I had a Bullet, I upgraded to a Triumph Bonneville T120, a brilliant piece of machine. Uh, but I stuck to the roads, highways, etc. But one of the things which happens if you don't have somebody critiquing you or giving you feedback or showing you possibilities, you don't improve your craft. You stay where you are. It's like learning to type. You type, there is a learning curve. But once you start typing, you don't ask feedback on typing. Your typing level just stays the same and you really don't improve your craft. Then it's not a craft, it's a chore. It's you just do the way you brush your teeth or in it. But with BBM, and when you had fellow riders who have great experiences of different formats of riding, uh, one of the formats and one of the was off-road riding, which is adventure riding, going into the mountains, the deserts, the forest trails,
Sun, snow,
sand, all any format. So essentially, the idea that you could, if you are a spiritual wanderer, you should be able to go where nature calls you, right? You should be able to go where nobody else can go, and you should be able to use that machine to take you there safely and bring you back safely. And that dimension got opened, one because of some of the experienced off-roaders were there in BBM who showed me the way, and two, of course, is the structured trainings with the BBM had organized. I remember Shanavas's first training.
Correct.
I felt I saw
God.
something. Yeah, I was like maybe a past life connection or something. I just felt I belonged to the forest on an off-roading motorbike. But of course, I must tell you, in the training, I was very intimidated. That really helped me relook at my views of motorcycling. Incidentally, one of the BBMers, Rajiv, who's always been generous with with all of us, he lent his Triumph Tiger, which is a off-roader. Again, a great piece of machine, and I used it for a couple of days, and I extended that courtesy to another week. And I eventually couldn't go back to a regular bike. And in fact, when I returned the Triumph Tiger, beautiful ADV, to Rajiv, and I took back my Triumph Bonneville, I just felt the bike was too small. I felt like I was sitting on a small cycle. Then I decided that I got to get on a larger. Then I did my research and I found my off-roading bike, and I got on that.
So you started off with the Bullets, the Enfield, which I know you still have one of them.
No, I sold it off.
Sold it off.
My
finally?
wife had to.
Great. Then you got into Bonneville. Then you used a Tiger. Then you moved to the Africa Twin, the first generation. Then you got the next generation of Africa Twin.
Yeah.
And today, of course, the Africa Twin has been taking you all around.
Yes.
How was the experience of signing up for some of those crazy international training programs from what Kyrgyzstan to South Africa to Iceland?
Yeah. Again, it's the my own quest of reaching out to a good set of motorcyclists so that my craft can grow up. I don't scout for, oh, I need to do this country, I do a checklist. No, not at all. And request them, "Yeah, can I please follow you and learn something from you?" And most people are generous in life. Most people want to help others, and they say, okay, I'm doing this, why don't you join? And that's how the relationship starts. Because Iceland actually has the world's highest percentage of unpaved roads. A lot of people don't know.
Not
70% of Iceland has unpaved roads because of the.
Yeah, it's crazy. The countries, of course, I would call it very similar to Ladakh region of India.
Yes.
And they have very prehistoric nature of uh, the landscape and stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember when we went to Iceland, it was funny. We were driving by. Of course, you do day trips across the whole country there. And that gentleman says, this is the second most populated town stroke city in Iceland with a population of 8,000 people. I'm like, wow. So Reykjavik is one.
Yeah.
And of course, the number two is probably 8,000 and 10,000. It is so natural, so pristine.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful beauty, culture, etc. Another thing also, what happens is in these international rides, you get riders from around the world.
Yeah.
And often some of these Western nations, especially Nordic countries, I think people get onto motorbiking, off-roading with safety and all that at a very early age. So they are it's like surfing, it's so easy to see a very advanced surfer in Australia or in South Africa than probably a surfer trying to do stuff in India, right? And when you meet those folks, you learn so much of things that you carry back. Some of these rides overseas also with BVM in itself, like we did a wonderful ride across Switzerland, Italy.
We did the Euro trip.
Thailand, Euro trip, for example.
There was one complaint, of course, from the gang that you would very frequently switch off the Senna. And we would say, Vishnu, we're moving left, and Vishnu was like, quiet. And you were enjoying your peace.
Yeah. Like I said, I think my roots of motorcycling, it's still solo riding. So there are times when I want to zone out and just focus on to experience that flow, because flow, as you would know, is fleeting. You don't know when it's going to hit you, but when it hits you, you don't want to be distracted by but thanks to all of you folks, you've been very accommodative of my.
Oh hell yes, we've been.
Yes. So, I think
there was one funny incident I remember because of this zoning. We were coming back. I think this was in Lake Garda. We were in Italy, and that was a night halt. And we had the Audi as our backup car. And we were 5-6 people, and obviously some of them didn't turn up for that evening dinner, whatever. And you insisted that you still want to drive in Italy, ride in Italy, and we had I think 1250s, the BMWs, and then I remember you were riding, and then we were obviously very close to each other, everything, but at that moment your fuel was running low, and I remember your Senna was switched off, or you didn't even charge it in the first place after the ride from Lax or somewhere. We were coming back from there to Italy. And we were very worried because we'd stopped near a toll plaza and you had vanished. And we were like waiting, trying to track you down. And I think we took about half an hour to get you. And then we headed back to the room. So that was scary.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because Italy was a surprise in terms of road sense. Because you got into Italy from Switzerland, Austria, and Germany, which had the best of road sense, and you felt safe as a rider.
Yeah.
And you get into Italy and you see the larger the vehicle, the more they
have to kill you.
The lanes.
I think I remember one of the most stressful rides in my life. We by mistake got onto Italian highways. And I think India is far safer. I remember there were like large trucks literally out there trying to kill you. It was like Mad Max Fury Road. And between Ashish and I, because he was leading and I was sweeping, we were literally on an intercom, and I would tell him, Ashish, now overtake. Now come back to this lane. Now overtake. Because I was literally trying to stop the traffic. And the speed limit was 120 and the trucks would be at 130.
140. And they're large ones.
Huge. 16-wheelers.
In fact, this ride, you're referring to the ride back from Venice. back.
That was back from Venice, but this was, I think, from Switzerland getting into Italy.
it. And that's when I got very worried when the fuel tank had
Yeah,
gone down and I missed the cut in
Correct.
the freeway.
correct.
And my fear was that it was dark and you have these drivers
Trucks anywhere out there to kill you.
all there to kill you, so you're middle of nowhere, and but my phone battery was going down.
Correct.
So it was but I knew, I mean, I was not too worried, but I knew
We'll wait.
the boys will find
Yeah.
out, and we don't leave anybody behind.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
I know that people are out there
Yeah.
to take care of me.
It was interesting. Another funny incident in one of the expressways was Gaurav was riding and he was stickler for speed limits. We all are. I mean, we follow all rules.
Rules.
But I think at that point in time, the ambient speeds were very high. We're getting in Italy, I guess.
Yeah.
And the bikes were speeding. The cars were fast. And if you're slow, you would get run over.
I don't know.
And I would tell Gaurav, speed up, pal, speed up. He said, dude, I'm on speed limit. I'm not going to break it. Right. And after 3 trucks threatened us,
Yeah.
that was the end of it. And we were like literally trying to keep up. Of course, we were trying to
Yeah.
stay on the speed limit. But yeah, I think it was a horrific experience driving on Italian highways. After that, we only chose back roads.
That's right.
And yeah, it was just unavoidable part where we had
And we
to reach
discovered
before
backwards are
evening.
more beautiful.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So, are you excited about Spain and Portugal too?
Absolutely. And I've heard a lot about uh, Portugal off riding. I've heard a lot about the Spain riding as well. I'm really looking forward to getting together with
The gang.
fellow gang again. I
Yeah.
missed the last one in Thailand, for example, but this I'm really looking forward
Yeah, I think Thailand, we missed you too. I can tell you, Thailand was like notches above.
about that.
We did the Mehong Song loop,
Mm.
and I can tell you one of the most memorable trips.
Mm.
We had a monster at that time.
Yeah.
I got the monster, and it was a hoot. So sometimes you don't need massive engines,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need superpowers, and something as close to home as Thailand was brilliant. So,
Brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, we'll do another Thailand. I think we
Thailand,
should
yeah.
put it on an annual calendar.
Calendar.
So, Vishnu, thank you so very much for making time. Thank you for being a founding member. Here's wishing you the very best for your new baby. And we're looking forward to seeing that grow, thrive, and blossom to something transformational for all of us in India.
Thank you so much, Sashank, for all that you have done. I think for getting the tribe together. I think you've been the force and the energy to make us, all of us, do it, and we've been very, very passionate and inspired by what you have brought us together. Also, thank you for inviting me into this space. I've been a big fan of podcasting as a model of learning.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that this conversation would also be helpful to others. So, really, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank
to
you.
share
Thanks a
part of my
lot,
journey.
Vishnu. Thank you.
you.
But it's still not over. You know that we have the next segment, which is proudly supported and sponsored by Triumph Narayana. A big thanks to our friends from Triumph Narayana. And we thought we'll recreate a bit of your magic. Your first ADV exclusively for you in our secret space waiting.
Lovely. Looking forward to seeing that.
But that's still not done.
Mhm.
We have another segment. So after that, we're going to take you to an off-road circuit and we will get you to experience the Triumph.
Wow. Waiting to test that and waiting to use that machine on an off-road track. Yeah,
Excellent. Are you excited?
absolutely.
Are you ready to go?
Right away.
Let's go. So Vishnu, are you excited?
Very excited and curious. Very curious
Good.
to
So-
know.
I've known you for a while
Uh-huh.
and we all know how much you love off-road,
Uh-huh.
off-road riding. And there is a special bike which has a very special place in your life.
Uh-huh.
So we thought we'll get that special bike
Uh-huh.
for you. Are you ready?
Very ready. Yes.
So we have, so presenting the 2025 Triumph Tiger 900.
Wow. Fantastic, man. That's the surprise.
Yes.
What's the surprise? Yes.
So we also have two fine gentlemen, very dear friends. Yogesh, Saurabh, please. Thank you so much for making it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
What a surprise to see you all.
Yes.
Our
And
pleasure too.
I
Yogesh-
started my ADV in this bike.
Oh,
So Yogesh and Saurabh, by the way, also run Triumph Gurgaon, Triumph Narayana,
Wow.
and super good gentlemen, fine human beings, and great friends. And they've done wonders for the Triumph brand in the last 4 years. So thank you so much for
Thank
getting
you,
the beauty
Shank,
here.
for
Really
giving us an
appreciate it.
opportunity to come and show you this
Absolutely.
beauty which we have been doing it for some.
But she's a stunner.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So 2025 variant comes with a lot of improvements back again. The graphics get changed, the aerodynamics become better.
Wow.
And yes, as discussed with Sashank, we would like you to run it for a day and then come back with some kind of
So we're taking him to the off-road circuit
yes
after this,
Okay.
where we will make sure that he does what he likes, and we'll make sure that
Correct.
we'll make him do what the Triumph does best.
Yes.
So then you'll be able to actually feel the capabilities of this bike on the right turf.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what the bike is actually meant for.
I think for all of us, this in a lot of ways was our first off-road machine.
Bike.
It's most accessible, light enough, but it's got oodles of presence. It looks gorgeous. But one thing which I love about Triumphs, I've had a few in my life, I still have a few, is that, and this can be said on record, they probably have the best quick shifters in business, right?
Yes,
I think they're just brilliant. The engine is butter smooth.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So I must. Sorry, I just want to
and
add
yes, please.
that I was just sharing with Sashank earlier in the day that I was always been a tarmac road rider. I never wanted to get on off-roading. I was so scared, and I thought that's not the world I'm part of. Until I got a chance to use a Triumph Tiger 800,
800,
the
the
previous
first generation,
generation. And then I said, I'm not going to get back into a road vehicle. And then I eventually moved to off-roading. The reason this is also another special for me is I've driven around the world, about 15, 16 countries, and a lot of the riders I ride with
Yes.
are on a Triumph in it. And
So
they've
that
always
has
said
been that has
fantastic
always
things.
been a legacy product.
Yes.
So if you look at so Triumph is today, and in fact for the last couple of years, has always been synonymous with classics and for the adventure category.
Yes.
So similarly in classics we have the entire range, right, going from 900cc going up to 2500cc with
That's
rocket.
right.
But even if you look at this one, the latest edition, it comes fully loaded on a Rally Pro model. Barring the upper guard, there's nothing which you need to fit it here.
Yeah.
It is absolutely stunner. The bike has become lighter. It has become more agile. It has almost 96 bhp now.
Wow.
Has a phenomenal torque. The pickup is phenomenally great. Even if you are most of our customers who have been riding to Spitis and Ladakh and to the
That's right.
extreme climatic conditions have never come back with any kind of complaint about the product.
Right, yeah.
That it has just malfunctioned at the right time or at a very, very appropriate time wherein they are just crossing. And some of those there is no road.
right,
Moving
yeah,
from one mountain to the other mountain, they are water patches.
That's
so
right.
absolutely stunner. And unlike our contemporary competition, it's an inline three. It's a liquid cool engine.
Wow.
Doesn't heat too much.
That's right.
Doesn't give you that kind of, and it gives you phenomenal mileage. So Vishnu, it will be a pleasure for us, if you will write it down,
Yes.
and your style. And come back with the feedback.
Yeah.
So we would love to bring you back to
Let's
the
start her up.
family.
Okay, we'll start her up.
But this looks like a 1200 from a distance.
So
Ah,
yes. So the physique and everything is almost similar because it is also with the 20 liter.
Sujoy's bike I saw.
That is Explorer. So Explorer comes with a 30-liter tank.
Okay.
That's slightly bigger.
Bigger.
First bike ली थी.
हाँ.
He took the
First bike,
first
he
bike
messaged
हमारा
me.
से.
Yeah.
This is gorgeous, yeah. So you have a nice home button. You have, I think, 100 odd bhp?
96 bhp.
96
Almost
100 bhp. But I think you can't judge a book by its cover or the numbers it flaunts. This is very, very capable. And I think its agility is brilliant. You have lovely recess for your feet and all. Nice, light, stress-free, butter smooth engine. I to love it.
And it can
Did
go
we
anywhere.
talk about the 21-inch wheels?
Yeah, we set.
Oh, brilliant.
So-
I think it's a gorgeous bike.
Beautiful.
And the best part, Vishnu, unlike any other competing product, it comes fully loaded.
Loaded. Yeah.
No?
yeah.
So you have crash guard standard?
Yeah. So only the upper guard is missing. Everything is
The upper guard is in the this.
Yeah.
That's one.
the stall is
In
there.
case you want to put it up, you can put it. Otherwise, everything is fully loaded.
Beautiful.
So there's a reason why Gaurav doesn't change his bike.
Yes. We have a lot of
We have a few
Tiger
Tigers.
riders in
Yes.
So
our.
Deepak has it, Shobit has it. I think the longest is probably Gaurav.
Yes.
Deepak got it
Yes.
recently. He also had a Bonneville, and I think
Yes.
for all of us, it's the transition, right? You start off with a Bonneville and then go to the Tiger.
So
Yes.
all of us, like I had a Triumph Bonneville. All of us in our riding, I always say the maturity is you start with the classic,
Classic.
Yes.
Yes.
to an ADV.
And then-
Yes,
Most
yeah.
ADV.
Immediate ADV, you arrived in life.
Yes.
Yes.
And here is my theory that the ADVs are in general probably your last bike eventually because
Yeah, you
they're
keep it
so
for a long
versatile.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so versatile. They're purpose built, go anywhere, sweat free. So you have those spoke wheels
That's right.
and a tubeless tire,
Ah, nice.
and that is critical.
Critical.
So when you're off-roading, you have a puncture, hit a bunch of rocks. It's tubeless plus the spoke.
Yeah, yeah.
You have nice little touches, which is like Yogesh said, you have these crash guards which come in as standard. The sump guard at the bottom is standard. So Triumph generally doesn't cut corners, so they just
Do
do the whole deal. And I somehow love the huge recess here.
Yeah. For an ADV,
Very
it's so
sporty.
important.
Yes,
Yeah.
for
For
an
ADV,
sports
it's required.
ADV is very sporty, and even you take the load, let's say, if put your
Yeah.
Panniers,
All the
yes.
panniers
panniers
and the
and all
top
that,
box.
it's a very good.
Yes.
It feels a good. And I also feel, I keep telling other young riders that for Indian road conditions, just the way in the car industry everybody has moved to an SUV.
Yes.
I feel even some of the classics, it's not good on your back, and this one given
Correct.
how uneven even a highway
Yes,
is.
yes.
Even some of the highway rides we do on the weekends,
Yes.
you could go at 100, 120 within the legal limits. Still, you can feel the vibrations.
Yes.
On an ADVs like these,
So
You
you know
are
what
more
SUVs
safer.
are for the cars. So ADV and
ADVs
typically a Tiger
are-
900 is for our.
and I always say,
Yes,
people say, oh, it looks large, I can't ride anywhere. I said, no.
No.
In
No.
fact, from a safety perspective,
Yes.
you are more safer in
very
an
much
ADV
balanced.
than a classic.
Correct.
It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much balanced.
And
Yeah.
unlike any other competing product wherein you have more of a boxer engines and all, so
That's
it's very difficult to pull it back when
Pull
you're
it back
sitting on
and
the
all that.
bike.
Yeah,
Sitting on the bike, but
Yeah.
with this,
These are
you
more,
don't have to do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
absolutely.
So the shape of the bike
Uh-huh.
and the designing is so brilliantly done.
Brilliant done,
It's
yeah.
very easy to
Absolutely.
maneuver.
Yeah.
No, these are very agile. So 900 is a brilliantly agile machine.
Yeah.
So Shanavaz made us do the back rear, disconnect the ABS,
Yeah,
take those tight turns on loose surfaces.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can, I was freaking out on this, yeah.
Those, yeah.
So Rajiv incidentally also bought the Tiger only after the training session.
Session. Yeah.
So I was, I think the Tiger is the hoot.
It's the most popular.
Most popular, yes.
And I'm sure, sir, once you ride it on
Yes.
that day,
Yeah.
you will be more than happy.
I'm looking forward to get my hands on this bike.
Yeah.
Really test it out.
Do you want to hop on the bike?
Are we allowed to?
Yeah,
hop
please.
on, no? Don't start her, but
Otherwise, I would have happily.
hop on.
Very nice. It feels really good.
And by the way, the center stand is standard.
Standard.
It's also
that's a very
standard,
good
yeah.
thing. Very good.
So it's a nice machine. You might want to focus on the parts. I love the suspension.
What are the other colors this comes in?
So one is matte khaki in Rally Pro, then there's a carbon black, and there's a new color which got introduced into 25
Intense
series,
orange and black.
Intense orange and grey.
Great.
Orange and grey.
Yeah.
Nice. तो ये white में नहीं आ रहा है.
So white comes in a GT mode variant. So if
GT
you-
variant.
Yeah. So if you do not want to do more of off-roading
Huh.
with alloy wheels, that comes more. But for typically for you, you don't need to be
This
an
is
off-roading.
better,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
better version.
This color was nice actually.
Yeah.
इसमें
So once
scratches
you
नहीं,
ride, so this is
कुछ नहीं
khaki green, right?
Yeah, that's matte
Matte
khaki.
khaki green.
Suzuki has the same thing. No?
Yeah.
Matte khaki green. Yes.
This is the legacy color.
Legacy color. हाँ.
900 has always been, synonymous
Yeah,
with
yeah.
this particular color. But this
I
color
think
doesn't
green
come.
and gold also are classic,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
The Showas on gold and this on green is
Green.
timeless.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the white is also beautiful. I love the way the frame hangs out. Brilliant, yeah. Full engine blacked out.
So Brembo disc brakes and
Yeah,
everything. So
everything's set. In fact, I still have the Triumph accessory and all. Jacket. But Triumph, by the way, makes some of the best
Accessories.
Merchandise
merchandise.
also, yeah.
and look at, as a brand, they're so confident about the product.
Product.
They're the only brand in the world which also gives you a warranty on your merchandise.
Vishnu, thank you so much for making it. It was absolute joy. Here's a small token of our gratitude
you so
from Bikes, Parties and More. And I'd also like to call Yogesh and Saurabh, who are very dear friends, fantastic human beings. And incidentally also happen to run Triumph Narayana. So thank you. Thank you for making
Thanks,
it. Thank you
Vishnu.
for all your
Thank you.
partnership.
Thank you. Please.
Small token from us.
Small
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's do a nice pic. Just a second. इसको AC on करने बोल दे यार. गर्मी लग रही है.
Looking forward to see the new Triumph Tiger.
You
900.
not cut it. You can't know it. I have to show that that's a surprise.
Apdi hai.